Welcome back, everybody, to this week's episode of the Be'Ian podcast. I'm pumped for this one because I just spent the past hour or so with two very special people in my heart, Rabbi Michael Olshin, the executive director of Yeshiva Torah Shraga, and Rabbi Shlomy Eichler, who is currently a Rabbi in Yeshiva. And we discussed something that is up and coming that a lot of people have been talking about, and that is exactly why I'm doing a podcast about this, which is the brand new Hesder program that is happening at Yeshiva Torah Shraga starting this upcoming fall in about 7 months from now. Obviously, if somebody's listening to this in a few months from now, I'm filming this and posting this in the beginning of January. But this episode specifically today, the reason why I did it is because I want to get down to the nitty-gritty of all the details. How are they going to support the Talmidim? What are they going to do to make it that all these guys that are coming from Shraga and outside to be the most successful in the army from a physical standpoint, spiritual standpoint, and just all the questions that you would probably have as to what this Shraga Hesder program is going to be? That is exactly what I tried to address today, and hopefully you guys will find this as informative as possible. So without further ado, it's time to jump into my conversation with myself, Rabbi Olshin, and also Rabbi Shlomy Eichler. Enjoy. Welcome to the Israel Gap Year Be'Ian podcast. I'm your host, Avi Proctor, and in each episode we get Be'Ian in depth into the remarkable lives of individuals in Israel who dedicate themselves to inspiring the next generation of Klal Yisrael. Okay, we're ready to rock. I am joined by two very, very special people right now that have a lot of relevancy in my life, Baruch Hashem. I am an alumnus of Torah Shraga, for those that have listened to this podcast. And I have a lot of Hakar Satov to the two people on screen right now, Rabbi Michael Olshin and Rabbi Shlomy Eichler. They are two big pieces of Yeshiva Torah Shraga and the Hesder program that is going to be starting this upcoming year. And I always like to start off every episode with a little bit of Hakar Satov. Obviously, Torah Shraga is the place that made me who I am, and I would not be here today without the help of the Yeshiva. But most importantly, you guys are both very, very busy people, and I just want to thank you both for taking the time to join me and for spending a little bit of time to discuss the Hesder program.
Thank you for having us. It's a pleasure.
It's an honor and a pleasure to be here.
Amazing. So where do we start? I think the most important thing right now is for the people that are listening to this podcast that might be clicking on this that have no idea who Rabbi Olshin is and Rabbi Shlomy Eichler. We need to give them a little bit of a background. So I'm going to start off with Rabbi Olshin. For those that are listening, how did you get to become the executive director of Shraga, and how did we get here today? And then we'll go with Shlomy.
Okay. Once again, it's a pleasure to be here. It's a long time coming. I have have the privilege of being the executive director of Yeshiva Torah Shraga. The yeshiva started 25 years ago, so we're celebrating our 25th year. And I started as a menal of the yeshiva in year 2, and was a menal for about 20 plus years. And a few years ago, pivoted to a new position, executive director of the yeshiva, but very excited about being the director of our new program that we're rolling out, the Hesder program of Yeshiva Torah Shraga.
You know, Rabbi Olshin, it's absolutely amazing how you've been in Yeshiva for 25 years. And if I asked you 25 years ago, in 25 years from now, there's going to be, Bizrat Hashem, a Hesder program in Yeshiva Torah Shraga, what would you have told me?
That's a great question. When we started, we had 12 students. We struggled to get a minyan sometimes, some days. And to think that 25 years later, the yeshiva is full, 150 guys in a given year, and now to start a Hesder program, it's beyond our dreams that when we started, 25 years ago. It's also great that we are making an impact not just on the Chutz La'aretz scene, but also here in Israel. Baruch Hashem, we have a lot of Olim, a lot of guys already served in the army before the Hesder program. Well over 100 guys have served in the army over the 25 years. I think we're close to 150 guys even. So, this is like a dream beyond dreams to be able to start this finally. And Be'ezrat Hashem it'll be a successful program that will continue for many years to come.
Amazing. Amen. And I, by the way, I didn't even know that as a Shraga alumnus that there was about 150 alumni that went to the army. And I'm going to give a shout out to Jacob Blair. Hopefully he listens to this because he was my roommate and one of those 150. I'm going to turn the table to Rav Shlomy. Give the listeners and myself a little bit of a background on you and how did we get here today?
Okay, so I grew up till I was about 13, 14 years old in the Five Towns. I went to South Shore back in the day. My family actually made Aliyah as I was going into 8th grade. So I went to school in Beit Shemesh for 1 year. I was in one school, then I switched from high school to a different school. And then post high school, so I knew I wanted to go to yeshiva. I knew I wanted to draft. So I went to Karen Biavna. I did the Hesder program in Karen Biavna. I was there for basically classical Hesder. I was there for basically into my Shana Bet until around Pesach time, about March of my Shana Bet. I then drafted. I was in the army for 16 months. It was different back then. They added a month since then. It was for 16 months. And then I went back to yeshiva for 2 more years. Fun fact, I would say my Shana Daled actually, I think, was my best year of learning in my entire life. And for the very simple reason that I basically came back to yeshiva and I'm just like sitting there on day one and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, wait, like I could like eat whatever I want, whenever I want. Like I could sleep whenever I want. Like I could shower whenever I want. Like I don't need anything but a Gemara. And just like Baba Kama that year just became my best friend. Like I didn't need anything else. So that was Shir Dalet, Shir Hey. After Shir Hey, so I knew that I wanted to stay in the yeshiva scene a little bit. So I ended up becoming a madrich in Torah Shraga. At the same time, I was learning in Grus. And then eventually I ended up, Baruch Hashem, getting married. And I still wanted to stay on in the yeshiva. I became a Sholem Yeshiv. And then with time, I was eventually became a full-time Rabbi in the yeshiva as well. And then really, not so long ago, about 2 years ago, the yeshiva approached me with this idea of the Hesder. And that's something that I'm certainly passionate about. I think it's a great way for us to be able to impact Klal Yisrael beyond the walls of our yeshiva in another more profound way. And something I was really excited to get involved in.
It's mamish very exciting to get involved, and it's funny because I think you're one of my madrichim in Shraga, and we've kind of built our process of staying in Israel together. Now we live Baruch Hashem down the road from each other. Shout out Ramat Beit Shemesh. And you also have a very impressive story for those people that might be listening to this that are thinking, hey, you have to be this guy that can't come from America in order to go to the army. You are a perfect example of somebody that has a very relatable story, which I think is very special about yourself. So really excited for this. So to channel into a topic for what?
I'll tell you a quick anecdote. We'll see if
let
me
hear
podcast or not. When I was a teenager, so Rav Dani Marcus lives on my parents' block, and he was once talking to me after Ma'ariv. I went to Ma'ariv, Baruch Hashem, and he was talking to me after Ma'ariv, and he said, all those people that say that you can't make Aliyah with like a teenager, he's like, you're the answer. You're the answer. And I looked him straight in the face. I'm like, Rav Dani, you don't even know what's wrong with me.
Mm-hmm.
That for those that don't know, Rav Dani Marcus is one of the head Rebbeim of Reshit, and a very prominent person in the community. So the fact that you got that from him, kol hakavod. And I wanna turn the tables to Rav Olshin, and we're gonna get into the kishkas of it right now. And there's a lot going on in Israel, obviously, over the past 2 years. The war happened, and just a lot of change, and a lot more people are interested in staying in Israel. A lot more people are talking about Hesder, obviously, and that is the times that we're in right now. And the first question I have for you is, out of all times of being in yeshiva for 25 years, as we said before, why now is it the time to be like, okay, we're doing this Hesder program?
Okay, another great question. As I said earlier, we've had many guys who've gone to the army over the years. So usually a handful of guys. We've had years where over 10 guys have gone to the army. I think it was 2012. We had like 12 guys that went. So we've always had guys who go. We've always been supportive. Leiv L'Chayal, Leiv HaTorah, Open Leiv L'Chayal, I think about 10, 11 years ago. And then subsequently TVA opened a program. Obviously there were Hesder programs that existed beforehand. I went to Yeshiva Chalavim. Rav Shlomy mentioned that he went to Karen Biavna. So there were programs that catered to the foreign students that were Hesder programs. Leiv Torah changed the game in the sense that they provided really all the services of a yeshiva, of a Hesder yeshiva, and focusing on lone soldier support system. And they've done a great job, and they've also been very helpful to us in giving us advice and for us to get our feet off the ground. So I want to thank also Rav Boaz and Rav Boaz Mori's Rosh Yeshiva, an old friend, and Rav Dudi, who do a great, fantastic job, and they really set the stage and set a standard, a great standard. And for years we've been talking about it. We should also have a program. Our guys want to continue the army. They came to Torah Shraga. They love learning in Torah Shraga. They love the Rabbeim. And then, because they want to go to the army, so they have to switch yeshivas for the second year. And sort of we hand them off to these other programs. Again, they've done great jobs, but we felt like they would probably be better off in their own yeshiva. They chose Torah Shraga for a reason. And we could provide these services as well. We can, do great for our students. They can have it all. They came to Torah Shraga. They had specific things in mind, a certain learning. The Rabbeim, their comfort zone is on our campus. So let's do it. And then after October 7th, it was a watershed moment for everybody, for Am Yisrael, certainly for us here in Eretz Yisrael. And for us as yeshiva, we felt like we have to up our game. We have to change the maslul of our yeshiva to address the needs of Am Yisrael at this time. I myself was not privileged to serve in the army. When I made Aliyah and with 2 kids, I did get a draft date. The army, I asked for a postponement because I just had started teaching at that time. And then they just never called me back. I never had a chance to serve. I have, Baruch Hashem, 3 sons that have been in the army. I have 4 daughters after that have all done Sheirut Ulumi or about to do Sheirut Ulumi. I have 2 sons-in-law that have served in the army. Between my 5 boys, they've done cumulative close to 2,000 days in this war, and 2 of them are still in the army at this time. So we felt as yeshiva on a personal level that we could do more. We need more. We're short soldiers, as everyone knows. That Tzahal is short, and let's create a program that, anyways, our guys are going. And if we can create a program in Torah Shraga, we can really move the needle in this aspect. I think more guys are open to coming. This past year's group, where 11 guys, 10 or 11 guys are drafting in March. They chose other programs. We didn't open last year. We plan is to open next year. We have 26 guys in our chat, in our Hesder chat, that are interested in exploring it. They're not yet committed. But Baruch Hashem, we're confident that we're going to get the numbers that we need to start this program and really move the needle, as I said, and for the yeshiva and for the gap year programs.
I can only imagine, first of all, by the way, what it's like to first of all, I saw a picture last week. If anybody paid attention to the Israel Gap Year Day, there were a lot of kids that came to the Zalman's lunch you had for the Hesder program, and the fact that you have 26 kids, as you were just saying, that are interested to learn more about the program is really special. And I think also what you just said, which I think it's important for people to keep in mind when they're listening to this, is that, when people hear of a Hesder program, for people coming from a typical American background, they are probably thinking of Lev L'Chayal and TVA. But what's, I think, very beautiful, as you pointed out, is that those programs, it's not like they didn't help you. Like, they're helping you in the process of building yours up and realizing that this is a need. And I think that's also something that, Jewish people working together on this is Mamish Hashem's work. And I think that's very special. My question that I want to throw out, Shlomy, for somebody that's listening to this, that's like, I've heard the word Hesder, but I don't know what that means. Could you give us a baseline understanding of what it means to be part of a Hesder program?
Absolutely. So the truth is, it's kind of in the name. The word Hesder means like an agreement. There was an agreement that was made between the army and, at the time, between religious Zionist rabbis and groups that basically, instead of doing the typical, at that time it was 3-year service, today it's a little bit less. For men it's 2 years and 8 months. For women it's 2 years and 4 months. But instead of doing the typical 3 years, what they were going to do is that they were going to join the army for a shorter period of time, for 1 year and 4 months. Their service on a whole would actually be longer because there's something called shalat, sherut lilo tashlum, which basically means that you are in the army, even though you're not actively in the army. So, for example, by the time you finish your Shana Aleph, you already have what's called a chiyul. You're already mitchayel, from the word chayal, you already become a chayal. You're not wearing the beautiful olive green, but you already technically are enrolled in the army, and you're going to spend the next 8 months in yeshiva, even though technically you're already enrolled in the army. Then you will join the army. So again, just to clarify, so you've been in yeshiva basically your entire Shana Aleph, almost your entire Shana Bet till the end of your Shana Bet, till about Pesach of your Shana Bet. You then join the army. When you join the army, so you join in what's called a machleket beinish. It's from the word machlaka, and beinish stands for ben yeshiva. A machlaka is a group of about 30 soldiers. It's probably the smallest, I guess, coherent unit that you are always doing things with. And they're all yeshiva guys. They might be, 10 guys from, let's say, Torah Shraga, and 10 guys from Shalavim, and 10 guys from Yeshiva Akko, right? And they'll all come together and they'll create this machleket beinish, this machlaka of yeshiva guys. And you basically do your service together. When you do your service, so you'll do about 3.5 months of what's called tironut, basic training. Then you'll have about another 3.5 months of what's called imun mitkadem, advanced training. And then after that, generally you'll have another 8-9 months where you are actively in the army. If we are, I hope not, but if need be, if we're in a time of war. So that means you could be deployed to Gaza, Syria, anywhere, really. You could be deployed into anywhere in Israel as well. And if not, so you'll generally do either what's called a kav or an imun. Kav basically means it's like if you ever went to Hebron and you see the soldiers standing by like the checkpoints. So they're doing kav, right? Basically, you're given a certain area, right? Your pluga, again, a pluga is also a coherent unit that you do everything with. You have 3 machlakot in a pluga. Your pluga will be put into a certain area, and your job is to protect that area. And that means that you'll do a mobile patrol, and that means that you'll have shmirah, guard duty in all different places, and that means that you might go to make arrests at night in certain places where the army has intelligence. And that's one option what you can do. And the other option is you could do also what's called another imun, right? It's basically more training. The army's constantly trying to keep you in tip-top shape. So generally the army will try every few months to give you another imun. There's something called an imun choref. They'll try to give you like one imun during the winter, and then an imun kayitz would be like another type of training in the summer. And that'll basically be your army service till you come back to yeshiva. And if you're Israeli, so then you would do shir dalet and shir hey back in yeshiva. One thing I should point out is that if you are in machal stands for mitnadev chutz la'aretz, means someone who's not an Israeli citizen, who decides to voluntarily join the Israeli army. So their service ends after their 17 months in the army. For them, it's a few months beforehand. It's about 5 months before the army. You have to be enrolled in a yeshiva. Then 17 months in the army. But that's it. Technically, you're not required by law to go back for Shir Dalet and Shir Hey. Although personally, I would definitely recommend it. I think it's an amazing opportunity to continue your religious growth.
I would recommend it too, and I think that was a great explanation. And my follow up for anybody that's listening to you, and it's funny because when I hear the explanation of a Hesder program, sometimes since it's a little bit foreign to me because I didn't do Hesder, and for people that are listening, it's like you have Machal, you have this, you have all these things. For someone that hears what you're saying and understanding that you learn before you do combat, and then after you finish off in Shir Dalet and Shir Hey, all that's done at Torah Shraga.
So all of it would be done in Torah Shraga. You would be, just in the yeshiva as almost like a regular guy for your Shana Aleph and your Shana Bet, and then you would come back in Shir Dalet and have an opportunity to be almost like an alter bacher in the Beis Medrash, someone who is continuing to develop his religious growth and can have a real impact on the guys as well. I should also point out, and I didn't say this, but you are correct. The classical Hesder path is into kravi. It is into combat. So any of like I'll just say a few names like Golani, Givati, Kfir, Nachal, all these names that maybe people have heard of before. That is the natural path that a person goes to when they join a Hesder program. And the army basically gives it to you. So the army will say, okay, Torah Shraga, you guys are drafting into Kfir, right? Again, whatever other yeshiva, you guys are drafting into Nachal. And as long as you have a profile that is high enough to be able to get into those units, which again is just a physical, really. So you should your natural path would be to join into those units.
Got you. Okay, that makes a lot of sense, and I'm going to have a few follow-ups based off of what you said to kind of get into the specifics of things. But I want to throw it back to Rabbi Olshin to give people an understanding of, obviously, I have both of you on here that are running this Hesder program, and there's many other people. So just in specifics to Rabbi Olshin, talk about what your role is specifically in the Hesder program for everybody.
Okay. So I'm the director of the program. I'm the one responsible for really designing the program, raising the funds that we're going to need to provide for our students. Baruch Hashem, our campus is a great campus. We're on the campus of Yeshiva University, and our dorms are full. And also, guys who are coming from the Army are going to need a different kind of living conditions. It's not really, dorm life is not really the right kind of living for a guy who's coming back exhausted after a week or two of Army training. He needs quiet, he needs space. So we're going to be renting apartments in the neighborhood in Givat Mordechai, probably. We have a number of Rabbeim, as you know, Avi, that live around the yeshiva, and particularly in Givat Mordechai, we have 5 Rabbeim that are living in the neighborhood. 4 of them who are veterans of the IDF, and so these guys are going to be the ones providing the support system, the family kind of life for the students living in Givat Mordechai. So all this stuff requires fundraising, requires a lot of behind-the-scenes work, and that's what I do. Baruch Hashem, we have a staff. As you know, Rabbi Eliezer Meshlov is also very involved in the program. Rabbi Eliezer is a Sgan Aluf, a lieutenant general. I'm not sure how it translates to English, but Sgan Aluf. He just was promoted this past summer. Someone who has extensive 20-plus years of army experience. He did about 400 days or more in this past war. And he has a lot of connections and just a lot of experience, and he's very much involved in working with the government's offices, the Ministry of Defense, with the Igud Yeshiva Hesder. Rav Shlomy is going to be assistant director. Rabbi Michael Goldman, who lives in Givat Mordechai, is going to be, who's the rabbi on campus here currently, who also did hundreds of days in this war. Is going to be also very involved. He's going to be Ram in the program. He's going to be serving also as one of the Av Bayit, taking care of the guys, him and his wife, who are known for their hospitality, and many others that are going to be involved. So there's a lot to do. There's a lot of work to go around, and Baruch Hashem, we have a great staff that's going to lead this program.
I could attest to that because I happen to obviously, as I mentioned before, I am an alumnus of the yeshiva, and Givat Mordechai, for those that don't know, is about a 5-minute walk from Shraga. So it's not like you're out in the middle of no man's land. You gotta hitch a bus to yeshiva. You're pretty close by, and also the Rabbeim that, as you were alluding to a second ago, that live in Givat Mordechai. I know them personally. They're all phenomenal, and they have open door policies, and it's something that allows you to feel like you have a sense of home. I want to throw it back to Shlomy. Tell me a little bit about what your role is going to be in this program.
Okay, for sure. By the way, I should have started by saying, I don't know if there's a way to have this in the beginning, but really, it's really a pleasure to be on the podcast, and thank you so much for taking out your time to
pleasure to have you
on. But yeah, my role is basically, as Rav Olshin said, is the assistant director of the program. If I were to try to sum it up in one line, which might be difficult to do, but I would basically say that I am here to be your support system. I'm here to be the one that you go to whenever you have an issue. I'm your guy. I mean, the one you need something. I'm the address to come to. And really, if I were to break it down, so I'd probably break it down into probably 4 different categories. Although you could probably break it down into more. We're looking at emotional support, physical support, technical support, religious support. We realize, obviously, when you think about technical support, so we understand that the Army is sometimes a little bit of a difficult system to be able to maneuver. Certainly for guys whose families are 6,000 miles away, it's in a foreign language. The Army bureaucracy is known for not being simple. It's not easy for Israelis. The army is difficult for Israelis. So Kal v'chomer, the army would be difficult for Americans. So if there's any way that we could help, in terms of helping, with your filling out paperwork and, teaching Olpan and helping with the army bureaucracy, right, and doing all these different things, even on the technical level. So obviously, we're here to support you. We're here to support you in that way as well. I even remember as myself. I remember as, again, like I was in Israel for high school. I was the first person in my family to draft to the Israeli army ever. Not including my grandfather, actually, although that wasn't into the IDF. He fought in the Lehi, but that's a different story. But so I remember, like, I really had, like, no idea, like basic things. I had no idea. Like, I didn't necessarily know, like, how the army worked. And I remember even asking someone in the community, just like an older friend of mine, like, wait, like, could you, like, walk me through this? Like, could you explain to me, like, how this even works? Like, I myself, like, didn't even really know. So again, and that's being in Israel, and that's being surrounded by people that did it. So I can only imagine, right, what it's like for people who don't have even that support system. So if we can support them in that way, that's obviously something that we are, incredibly excited to be able to do. On top of that, so I think we're looking at, emotional support is something I think also that's incredibly important. It means, being with you, coming with you to the Lishkat Giyus. It means, coming to your base to make a barbecue for you and to raise your spirits, right? It means doing all those things to really be there to help in whatever way that we have. I know Olshin is going to be giving, like, classes on mental toughness, right? That's something that's incredibly difficult in the army. Probably the hardest part of the army, actually. It's not the physicality of the army. It's much more the mental and the emotional strain that the army has on a person. The army, to a certain degree, could be like a pressure cooker. People don't realize this, where it's like, you're always on. There is no break. Like, you're constantly like, wait, where's my gun? Am I tucked in? Like, wait, am I where I need to be in the right time? Like, there's always things going on. So to be able to, like, afford that emotional support to guys, I think is also incredibly advantageous. We've had, even in the past, we've had, like, panels. I've brought in people from all different walks of the army itself, people who had, been in these guys' shoes, just a few years prior, to discuss, like, what was it like? What was the hardest thing that you experienced in the army? What would you do different if you were going to do it again? Right? We brought in guys that were in Sayarot. Sayarot means, like, elite forces. We brought in guys that were in, classic Hesder, classic, Kravi units that Hesder guys go to. We brought in guys that were not in Kravi. Not everyone has the profile to be in Kravi. So really, just to emotionally to be able to help in those ways is obviously something that we look forward to being able to do. On top of that, like I said, so there is also the physical side. I know the Yeshiva is bringing in a physical trainer to be able to work out with guys at least weekly, and to be able to give guys a workout routine and a workout regimen and a diet to be able to get in proper shape for the army. The truth is, I'll just give you a disclaimer, it's not really so necessary. We're going to do it, but it's not actually so necessary. The truth is, when you start the army, when you draft, so the army basically looks at you as if you're starting from zero. I even remember when I had drafted, so the first run that we ever did was a 3-kilometer run. The word run is generous in this context. It was basically a brisk walk. And I remember there was a guy in my unit who, I don't think anybody listening to this would know, he's an Israeli guy. He happens not to be religious either. But he was, like, a little overweight. And he started running, and very quickly into the run, he started to struggle. And I remember one of the commanders turns to me. He's like, Eichler, push him. Just push his back. I'm like, the whole way? He's like, yeah, just push him the whole way. So that's what I did. I basically, like, just, like, had a hand on this guy's back, just pushing him the entire way. I think he ended up throwing up, 3 times over the span of this run. But the truth is, the reason I'm saying this is just, like, to realize, so like, yes, is there a certain level of fitness that, maybe it would be helpful for you to be at? Certainly. But, like, realize, like, you're starting with a 3-kilometer brisk walk. It's not really so physically challenging. But that being said, I still think, the yeshiva is going to go out of our way to be able to support in that ways. Other physical ways, like, just like a pro tip, people don't know this, like, if you have to choose between your boots being a little bit too small or a little bit too big, you should probably take them a little bit too big. And the reason is because you can always put an insole into your boot. But if your shoe is too small and it's squeezing you and you're on a 35-kilometer walk, like your feet are just going to be killing you the entire time. There's no way around it, and you can't just tap out. Like there's no such thing. You got to do it. So like people do, like again, just like giving guys like just like tips about like how do you best go about like doing these long walks? How do you best go about doing the trading? What should you be looking for in terms of what's called a pakal? It means like a specific job they give you, like a sharpshooter, or like maybe you'll be like you'll have like a grenade launcher on the bottom of your gun, right? Like what should you be looking out for? Things like this also, I think, are incredibly advantageous to guys. And then there's the physical side of just, helping with physical needs, right? We're going to make sure that the yeshiva has, stocked fridges for the guys, laundry service, right? Offering rides to buses or to trains, right? For guys to be able to get back to base. Right? Those are all things that we're looking to provide as well. And then the last one, which might be, the most interesting to people, is I think also, supporting guys religiously. So that means, learning Torah Eretz Yisrael, learning Hilchot Tzava. I'll just give you like a few examples. We had a guy when we drafted who, when you first draft, so they give you a gun after about a month, but they don't give you any like bullets. They don't give you a magazine yet because they want to make sure that you're going to use the gun properly. Makes sense. So we had a guy. We had been given our gun on Thursday. And there was a guy who, like that Shabbos, was like told the commander, he's like, I'm not carrying this around. He's like, it's muktzah. I can't carry this around. Like I have no use for it. I don't know how to use it. Okay, so like, is that accepted amongst like all shitas? Like that's interesting. Like, you got to know that, right? Like I remember, even in this war, like people were asking, I'm right now I'm in a house in Gaza, right? Like I have this food that I could cook. Like, am I allowed to like use the pots and pans? Like how do I kasher these things, right? So these are like real life practical things that like, you got to know when you draft into the army. I remember myself. I was a radio guy in the army for what's called the Samach Mempe, Sgan Mifakei Pluga, the Samach Mempe. He's like he's the assistant commander to like 90 soldiers. So I was his radio guy, and I remember like the first Shabbos, we're driving around, and somebody calls on the radio, and like I froze. I was like, wait, like, what do I do? Like, am I allowed to answer this right now? Like, how do I answer it? Okay, it's like there's a way. Like you got to learn how to go about doing all these things. And I would say on top of that, coming to army bases, to give chizuk to the guys, to come give shiurim, running events back in yeshiva, running Shabbatons, all these different types of things to help with I would say religious support. Are all things that we are that we're really looking to try to do. I would say one point, and I know I've gone on for a while. I'd say one point that I think is very, very important. I think when people think religiously about the army, they think about the religious challenges. The truth is, the army is a place of tremendous religious opportunity. I'll just give you two quick anecdotes on that. When I was in the army, so we had an army medic who had joined our machlaka, who was not religious. The reason that happens is just because when you basically draft, you do the first 3.5 months of basic training, and then if you become an army medic, so then you go back to do a 3-month course as an army medic, and then you go back and rejoin for advanced training, which means that if you draft, this guy drafted in November, we drafted in March, so at the end of November, I apologize, at the end of like August, when we had finished our basic training, he had already finished basic training and his training to be a medic, and now he was joining with us for advanced training. Now he wasn't religious. There is no Hesder draft in November. And I remember like we basically made it our business. Like this guy was putting on tefillin every single day. Like he was like learning chavrusa after chavrusa with like guys that we were just setting up with him chavrusa. Like at some point like he would turn to us and he'd be like, okay, I'm finished. We'd be like, no, one more chavrusa. He's like, Chevra, ani lo dati. He's like, I'm not religious. Right? But like so we give the classic answer. We're like, Ata odlo dati, like you're not yet religious, like but you're getting there. But that's an opportunity where you can have like a tremendous impact on somebody's life. I'll give you one more story. I think there's a certain like also like I think saying that goes around maybe the youth of our community, where it's like people like to say like where you test your midos, it's on the basketball court. But if you have midos on the basketball court, so that's a sign of a true Eved Hashem. And I always chuckle at it. I'm like, where you have midos. Picture this scene. Okay, this really happens in the army. You're in the army for about 3 weeks. Okay, like I said, the army is a pressure cooker. It's incredibly difficult, right? You're on all the time. You're just waiting to be able to leave, to get out for Shabbos, to leave after 3 weeks. Okay, great. They come to you, they're like, okay, you know what? You guys are getting out. Not only are you getting out, it's Leil HaSeder, let's say. You're going to get out for 4 days. You're going to be, you're going to get out to be with your family for the Seder. They say, oh, wait, 1 second. But we need just 2 volunteers just to stay back. Because, we can't leave all our stuff just out in the open. We need people to do shmirah over our stuff. We need people to do guard duty over our stuff. Mind you, they're not even doing guard duty over people infiltrating into the base. They're doing guard duty over other people not taking their stuff within the base. But that's a whole separate story. And so they say we need 2 people to stay back to do guard duty and to stand in front of this container, which is locked anyway. And you're going to stand here and you're going to do guard duty the next 4 days, and your friends are all going to go out for Shabbos and for Leil HaSeder, and then they're going to come back, and we're going to be on base for another 3 weeks, and you're going to basically be here for 6 weeks straight, and then you'll leave. I need 2 volunteers. And it's in that moment, you're okay, this is the test as to whether or not I have proper midos. That's difficult. So that's a real opportunity. You learn in the army what it means to really give of yourself to others, to really be able to think of others before you think of yourself. That's not a religious challenge. That's a religious opportunity that I think not enough people really, really think about when they think about going to the army.
That was very well said, and obviously you said a lot of things. And just to recap a little bit of what you said in the beginning, which I really loved, was the support system is there, emotional, physical, spiritual, all the things that somebody needs, in this process. And obviously we're talking about kids that come to Shraga. Kids that come from Shraga are coming from North America. They're not used to this whole nother world of all the paperwork and all the things that you need to do. And I think what's important to highlight, and just to touch on what you said before, is that you guys are here to basically hold their hand through the process, which is very important for people to know that when you join a Shraga Hesder program, you're not alone, and that you have people that have done it and people that are there to help you that are very accessible. So I think that was something that I really liked that you said. And then also to highlight your last point of, it's not necessarily a religious challenge. You could look at it that way. You could look at it that way if you want to, but you could also shift your perspective, like anything else in life, to say, hey, this could also be a religious opportunity. And your final example of that story, I mean, did that happen to you, or do you know that someone that happened to?
So basically, throughout your time in the army, you're gonna end up volunteering at some point or the other. But there's off weekends and there's off weekends. When you have an off weekend where you're leaving base on Friday morning and you're coming back on Motzei Shabbos, that's easier to volunteer for. It's still difficult, but it's easier to volunteer for than when they say, no, everyone's going for a week of vacation, but we need someone to stay back. Are you willing to volunteer for that? That's a real challenge. I want to give credit to my friend. I don't know if he listens to the podcast. I'll give a shout out to Yoni Axelrod. I remember he actually stayed in. He stayed in when everyone left for a week. He stayed in, and I still remember it. That's much of an impact it left on me. I was like, wow, that's chazak. That takes strength.
I can only imagine. Shout out to Yoni if he listens to this one, and I want to kind of throw the ball back to Rabbi Olshin, and this is something that's really been on my mind since we started this interview. Of, as you mentioned before, you have 26 kids in Shraga that are interested in this program. Doesn't necessarily mean that all 26 are going to want to stay. I can only imagine when you are running a program and you have all these kids that are coming from American families when all their parents are sitting back home. And we all have heard those stories throughout the war of parents that had children in the army did not sleep. The ones that are in Israel, the ones that are in America. And for you, Rabbi Olshin, that's dealing with this program from the top level, I'm sure you have a lot of conversations with parents that are worried about their children doing this process of being in the army, even if they believe in it. Per se. It's hard. It's hard to acknowledge that. So I want you to take me through that of, if you have a parent that's speaking to you that's a little bit hesitant of, obviously I believe in Sahal, I believe in Medinat Yisrael, I believe in all those things that I want my child, but at the end of the day, it's still hard to let your child go off and do something like this. What does those conversations look like for you with parents that think that way?
So first of all, I have to say that the overwhelming majority of parents, the parents that we've dealt with, are fully supportive. Even if they didn't intend when they sent their kid to yeshiva that they was going to go to the army, and then over the course of their experience in Israel, especially the guys that were here during the war, it was more of a pull and a push from themselves that they wanted to go, and so overwhelmingly the parents are supportive. Often we focus on the challenges, and they sort of take the limelight, but the the majority of parents who may be quiet and just never make that call, they're fully behind their kids' decisions and supportive, and that's the homes that they raised in. 95% of the guys that come to Torah Shraga are coming from homes that value the IDF, value the Medinat Yisrael, and all those things, and this is how they've raised their kids. So when a kid says, I want to volunteer, I want to do this, it's hard for them to say no, let someone else go, not you. But of course it's a fair concern. It wasn't in the cards. Parents have this vision that, okay, my kid's going to go to yeshiva and he's going to go back to the United States, or if he's from England or Australia or Canada. We've always been mentioning the Americans. It's the Americans that are the challenge. All the other guys who come from the other countries, they have no challenges. But it's something that wasn't planned for, and now the kid says, I think I want to do this. I think I really want to make a contribution. I think this is the right place for me. I think this is what's needed in the larger picture of Am Yisrael. So first of all, we would not take a student who doesn't have parental support. That is, it's not going to work. It won't be healthy for anybody. So it has to be someone who will have support. Again, like you said, their parents were hesitant. We'll have those conversations, and we've had in the past. Even before we had Hesder program, there'd be many kids who wanted to go. Parents weren't so on board, and eventually they came around. I'm thinking about one particular student who came from he was an orphan. He had lost his mother while he was in high school. Didn't really come from, he came from a more yeshivish kind of background, and then he came to yeshiva and wanted to go to the army. And we had the conversations with his dad, and his dad came around to the idea, and he realized this is what his son wants to do and what's best for his son, and he couldn't be prouder now. And there was a lot of self-sacrifice. The father wanted his son home, and who can blame him? With those challenges, he came on board and flew out for his son's ceremony, and like I said, it was a process, but everyone was happy the way it went, and we were supportive, and the program that he went to was very supportive, and it worked out, Baruch Hashem, and still works out. So those conversations are important, and the important thing, like is it's conversations. It's something that's not new to the Hesder program. As in Torah Shraga, I think it's one of the things that we pride ourselves on is the lines of communication that we have with our parents. It often happens when a student wants to come back Shana Bet, and the parents it wasn't something that they had envisioned for their son, and so the conversations begin before then. Before the kid says, I want to go back to Shana Bet, the conversations here in Yeshiva between Rebbeim and parents are something that we start from the beginning of the year. And so when a kid surprises his parents, I want to come back to Shana Bet, I want to go to the army, it's the relationships are already there, and we're able to build on those relationships and work this triangle of student, son, parents, Rebbeim, and work together to find the optimal solution for everybody.
I really agree with that, and obviously I could personally attest to that. That parent Rebbeim relationship, and also to the point that you touched on a second ago, that you're not going to do something like this and allow a child to go through this program if you don't have parental support. Which I think for a parent that might be listening to this, it's important to know that you guys are here with them and you're here to make it work. And it's not that we are against you if you choose not to agree with this. It's more just let's find a way to work together, which I think is very unique. And I'm going to throw the ball back to Shlomy. As I mentioned before, when you were speaking about the specifics in regards to the program and what you could do if you choose the path of Hesder, if somebody's listening to this podcast that's like, you know what, I didn't really think about Hesder before, I want to begin to think about it, but maybe combat is not the thing for me. Is it an all or nothing type of situation? Could somebody still do a Hesder program or some form of that without joining one of those combat units?
So I believe that technically you can. Your default is basically that you're going into combat. However, I think that if you request not to be in combat, I think you can request. The issue then becomes where do you end up? Meaning some of the advantages to the Hesder program is that you're with a bunch of religious guys. You're in what we said, that machleket beinish, that machlaka of yeshiva guys. Once you leave that default path, so where you end up may not have so many religious people, and then things that are you can almost like take for granted, they're given when you're with everybody in Golani or in Givati. It's like, well, I don't really have a minyan now for mincha, wherever I am, because I don't have enough. I might not even be with 10 guys, and they might not be religious. Like these sort of things, right, start to become questions. And just in terms also the general environment, I think there's a great environment in terms of when you're in Hesder itself. I know that we had opportunities to learn, and there were guys making siyumim when we were in the army. And it's an awesome environment. So I think that some of those nuances, some of those details, you begin to lose. And then also just even in terms of the army itself, where do you end up? So for example, I know that it used to be, and I'm not sure it's still the case, but it used to be that like a handful of guys that were Hesder guys could get into intelligence. The army didn't want to invest in them going to intelligence because they just weren't in the army for enough time for it to be worthwhile for the army. But even then, like you had to be like an absolute genius to be able to get into this, to get into any intelligence unit through Hesder. Most of the jobs that were given out would be more of like either you could be like a truck driver, or you could be in the Rabbanut, which are also they're incredibly important jobs. But just realize that the array of jobs in front of you, it might be smaller than you think.
Got you, and I'm glad that you clarified that for even one person that's listening to this that has that even thought in their mind. And I'm gonna throw it back to Rabbi Olshin because I want to address obviously probably I'll say even the elephant in the room of this is the program that's happening at Shraga. Shraga is an amazing place. I love the Rabbeim, and obviously it's my home. But at the same time, we could acknowledge that if someone comes to the base magistrate Shraga, the majority of the Rabbeim in the yeshiva do not send their children to the army. So when there's a program like this that's coming into the yeshiva, obviously as we were discussing before with Shlomy, that you're getting that emotional, spiritual, and you're getting all that support from obviously the people that are working in the Hesder program. But at the same time, as we know, it's very important to have your surroundings to still support you. So talk about what that's going to look like when you have a lot of these Rebbeim that aren't necessarily sending their children to the army, but are still involved in a certain way in this program.
Okay. That's the elephant in the room for sure. Baruch Hashem, Torah Shraga has a fantastic group of Rebbeim. We have over 30 Rebbeim on staff. You mentioned most of the Rebbeim. It's probably about half. Half the Rebbeim have raised their kids in the Haredi system. But you have to understand that one of the things in life is one of the things we teach often in yeshiva is to make a chiluk, make a differentiation between philosophy and strategy. Every single one of the Rebbeim in Torah Shraga were raised in their own homes, raised in religious Zionist families, and when they went to yeshiva, they went to yeshivas that are part of the YU umbrella system. And then at a certain point in life, as they got married, as they advanced in learning, they may have gone to other institutions, Haredi institutions. And when they decided to raise their children here in Israel, so they chose strategy over philosophy for almost every single one of them. The ones that we're talking about that are not in the religious Zionist system. What do I mean by that? That is, they felt, for whatever reason, they felt it's safer, or learning is taken more seriously, or the better chance of their children becoming Talmid Chacham. So for strategic reasons, they raised their kids in that environment and in those schools. Even if they didn't really feel comfortable philosophically with those institutions and with the Haredi world, because they themselves are religious Zionists at heart, and often in practice as well. The rest of us chose, we thought strategically also it makes sense to raise our kids in a religious Zionist system, the home that is which we believe philosophically to be the right derech, and we felt that to be consistent. And there are challenges of both in both choices, right? To be able to come home and feel that the school and home are consistent, you know, I felt was a better choice, even if maybe the level of learning wasn't maybe as high in some of the other yeshivas. But practically for now, as I said, post October 7th, a lot of the world has changed in terms of our understanding of the worlds, of the Haredi world, of the religious Zionist world, and what needs to be done. I can say without exception, every single one of our Rabbeim are fully supportive of any student that chooses to go into the Hesder program. And I would say even more, if any one of their own children would decide, who living in the Haredi world, would decide, I want to join the army, I want to go to Chashmonaim, which is the new Haredi unit, which actually I have a son who is a katzin, who is an officer in the Chashmonaim, this new unit. They would be fully supportive. Every single one of Rabbeim, I've had these conversations with every single other Rabbeim. If they had a son who decided they want to go to the army, they would be fully supportive. And so certainly, if they would support their own son, they would support every single one of our students. We've had there are Rabbeim whose sons have gone to Chashmonaim or are planning going to Chashmonaim. Some of the Rabbeim themselves decided because of the war to join the army. At least they tried to join the army. Some of them were welcomed with open arms. Others, they felt maybe it wasn't fair to our enemies if they joined the army. So they didn't take them. But the point is that you're going to be fully supportive from every single Rebbe in yeshiva. That's number one. Number two is it's somewhat of a tikkun. There are some Rebbeim, and again, I'm not going to name names. They can, if they feel comfortable talking about this. Some of the Rebbeim who feel that had they known now what they know now, that they known 20 years ago, what they know now, I should say, they would have made different choices for their children. Now it's a little bit late. But they feel like the system that the children are in and the response to the war from those institutions was lacking, and they thought it would be different, and they would have done it differently had they known what they know now. And so we feel it's our responsibility to make that known to our students, that they be better informed when they're making choices as they go on in life. To understand the ramifications of heading into the one world as opposed to the other world, and how it impacts the Jewish people in the larger sense. So this is, again, like I said in the beginning, is a way of sort of moving the needle, and it's so important that people come to support what we're doing in Torah Shraga, and our hope is that other yeshivas like ours will do the same. And until then, we'd like to be the address for some of the guys coming from other yeshivas. Obviously, guys who are in Lev and guys in TVA, and the guys who are in the other Hesder yeshivas, Gush, Shalvim, Kerem Yavna, Kotel. So they have where to go when they go to the army. But guys who are from the other yeshivas that are interested in the army and they're looking for a place to continue, so they should consider joining our program. I think we have a lot to offer, where you can have the best of all worlds. You can be in Yerushalayim, you can be in a high level of learning, like we have here in Torah Shraga. And one thing we haven't really mentioned, but if those who want to continue learning post army, for Shir Daled and Hey, as Rav Shlomy mentioned earlier, to be in the campus of Yeshiva University with the high level shiurim that exist in the Kollel, Rabbi Miller, Rabbi Bednar, Rabbi Eisenstein, to be in that environment and be able also, we've discussed with YU a partnership where our guys who come back, and the older guys who want to be part of those higher level shiurim, will be able to enter into those shiurim. We're not really sure how the program is going to look, but YU Israel program is sort of resetting itself, and I think they're going to have a program that will be very interesting and a good option for our guys who are coming back post army, that they want to get a degree while staying in the Beit Midrash. These are partnerships that are going to create great opportunities for our guys if they want to stay in Israel long term, and while staying learning and getting a degree at the same time and completing their Hesder service. So it's a supportive environment. Every single Rebbe is behind this, wants this to happen, wants to get off the ground, and it's going to make, like we said, a real impact on the wider picture, both in the United States, Canada, Australia, England, and as well here in Eretz Yisrael. Bezrat Hashem.
I completely want to echo what you said. Of all the Rebbeim in the yeshiva, I happen to know them personally, and on that point of like, it's a valid question that if somebody's coming into yeshiva thinking, or coming into the Shraga program, the Hesder program, thinking, okay, am I going to have enough support from all the other Rebbeim around? And I like what you said about how it's all there in terms of the support from the Hesder staff, the support from the other Rebbeim, regardless of whatever philosophical, hashkafic things and strategic things they decide to live their life, and that they all come from a normal background, if that makes sense. There's no like Rebbeim in the yeshiva that are super radical that are going to be coming over to a kid on the side and be like, hey, why are you not going to why are you going to the Hesder program, or you should do this, you should do that. And I think that it's a very important point that happens to be, I could echo as the host of this podcast still, that I am an alumnus of the yeshiva, and I understand, and I've seen so many different people and so many of my friends that have come out of the yeshiva with so many different paths. My roommates, as I said before, as I shouted him out at the beginning, Jacob Blair, he and I were roommates together in Shana. He went to the army. I didn't go to the army. We both stayed in Israel, and there's different things that the yeshiva is just very supportive of whatever path you decide to take. My last thought and question I want to follow up with you, Rabbi Olshin, is for somebody that's thinking to themselves of, it's a common thing that people bring up of going to the army. If you want to stay, spiritually strong, or you want to be strong in your learning, or it could be a risk to your spirituality, and all those things relate to that conversation. What do you say to that in terms of a kid that's thinking, if I go to the army, I'll, I won't become, I won't stay religious, or I'll have issues with all these types of things. What would your thought be on that?
Anytime you leave the Beit Midrash, it's a different environment, and it's something that it can be challenging. But there are times when we have to close our Gemara, and we have to leave as a fulfillment of the Torah, as a kiyum of the Torah. Now, Avi, you're married, Baruch Hashem. You have children. There are times you probably have a chavrusa. I know you have a chavrusa every day, and your wife calls, I need your help. Baby's not well. You have to close the Gemara and say to your chavrusa, I'm sorry, I got to go. And that's a fulfillment of the Torah. You are living the Torah. We teach in Torah Shraga that Torah is alive, and we live the Torah. And one of the ways that we live the Torah is by fulfilling every aspect of the Torah. And today, since really the establishment of the State of Israel, it's not new to the fact that we are at war, or have been at war the last 2 years. The way we fulfill the Torah is by defending the Jewish people in Eretz Yisrael. It's an obligation of the Torah. The Torah talks about fighting the battles against our enemies. So although there may be challenges in the army, of course, at any time you step foot out of the Beit Midrash, you're dealing with challenges, right? Our guys are going to college, which is like the standard path of guys, and there are challenges there, but they understand they're doing that because they want to be able to earn a parnasa, and they want to learn something, study something else. It may not be the same level of mitzvah as fighting the wars of Hashem, but they understand this is what's necessary in advancing my life and my family, etc. So going to the army is something that is necessary. What is a beautiful teaching that Rav Adin Steinsaltz, which I shared in the yeshiva, where he asked the question, and we're just a few weeks out of Hanukkah, and he asked the question that we understand that when we say the Al Anisim, we're thanking Hashem for the miracles. We understand the miracles of Rabbim B'ad Miatim, right? The many in the hands of the few, and we understand the miracles of the Giborim were given to the Chalashim, right? The great warriors handed to the weak. But what is the miracle of Risha'im Biad Tzadikim? Or Zaydim Biad Oskei Toratecha? What's the miracle of the iniquitous, the bad into the hands of the good? That's the way it usually happens. That's every movie ends that way, that the good wins, right? The miracle, perhaps, is what we're seeing today. Is that on two levels. One is that the evil don't play by the rules, right? Those who we're a few weeks after the Bondi Beach attack, those who were shooting the murderer terrorists, they weren't playing by the rules. They got guns illegally, right? And it took a half hour till they were able to be taken out because people didn't have guns. So those who play by the rules often are at a disadvantage. And playing by the rules, being a tzaddik, often puts you as a disadvantage against those who don't play by the rules. That's on one level. On the second level is that we see that some people think that if you're a tzaddik, you don't go to fight. But we understand, and today, as the Maccabim understood, that tzaddikim can fight as well. That you can have safra v'saifa, can be one who is a learned person and also one who takes up arms. And you could be both. And there's a precedent of it already of 80 years of the state of Israel, people who've taken up arms. The Irgun Tzva Leumi, the Etzel, the Irgun, the organization that fought against the Arabs and the British before the establishment of the state was founded by a man named a tzaddik named David Raziel. He was a student in America as a Rav Yeshiva. He was a chavrusa of Rav Tzvi Yehuda Kook. And after the massacre in 1929 in Hebron, which a massacre that occurred just by pitchforks and knives and swords, there was no guns involved in it. And Jews weren't able to defend themselves because they never took up arms. There were guns available. The British, when they shot in the air, that's when the massacre stopped. And he was so incensed that none of the community of Hebron, the Yeshiva students of Yeshiva Hebron, didn't have any training that they could have had guns and could have fought off their attackers. So he decided, I have to leave Yeshiva and I have to learn how to fight and I have to train others to learn how to fight because we have to defend ourselves. And that's how they started. And so that's what's needed today. It is not the goal to serve in the army. It's not the tachlis in and of itself. We understand that we hope that one day we're able to put down our arms and we live in peace with our neighbors. It may only happen when Mashiach comes, but hopefully it can happen before then. And hope Mashiach should come right away. But we understand that's what is necessary. But it's a necessary thing that we have to do. But it's not the tachlis. The tachlis is to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The ultimate goal is to live in a world of peace, in order that we can serve Hashem without having to fight. But this is the necessary thing that we have to do, which is a mitzvah. It's a mitzvah that we hope, one day we won't have to engage in this mitzvah, but until then, we have to engage in this mitzvah, and this is a fulfillment of the Torah, and even with all the challenges, this is what's necessary. But we will be there with you and support you, and to make it that'll be, you don't have to sacrifice spiritually. You can like Rabbi Shlomy said earlier, there are spiritual opportunities in the army. There are many people that were mitchazek in the army. We have many of our students that have been mitchazek in the army. We even got stronger and more committed, and came back with a fervor to learn more. And that's our hope and our tefillah for this program, for our students, and for every student, whoever they are, in any program, that the experience be a positive one, a safe one, and Be'ezras Hashem to be able to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu in every way, b'chol derachecha da'ehu, with full support, and for the right reasons, for the Shem Shemayim.
Oh man, I really love what you just said right there, because it's an important point of, you can really serve Hashem. It's like when people always say, outside the base medrash, that is another aspect of avodas Hashem, as you were just saying a second ago. And sometimes, you do have to close, your Gemara when your wife calls you and you have to go back to your child. It's something that you have to do, and this is something that is obviously a huge mitzvah. And to have that support, and to realize that at the end of the day, what the goal really is avodas Hashem and growing closer to Kadosh Baruch Hu, and that God willing is still something that Shraga will hopefully help you, stay strong in all different areas, physically, spiritually, emotionally, through this process of going through the Hesder program. I am very confident, hopefully, in the Yeshiva's job in doing this, and I'm very excited to see what the Yeshiva is going to do. And if somebody's listened to this podcast and got this far, thank you for listening. And if they're interested to learn more about the program, I will put both of your contact information down below. I'll put links to whatever you send me after this, Rabbi Olshin. I'll put all the links down there. And Bezrat Hashem, hopefully people will hear this and make the decision that's right for them, because everybody has to, to figure out in what way they could serve the Jewish people and whatnot. And Bezrat Hashem, this should all be with tremendous asacha. So thank you guys, as I started with Haikar Sato, for joining me. This has been a phenomenal conversation, a great reunion, and a great way to come back on here. And looking forward for the update in probably a few years from now. Bezrat Hashem, thank you guys. Thank you guys for watching this week's episode. I hope you enjoyed that one, by the way, because for me, as an alumnus of the yeshiva, I obviously have my connection to Shraga, but to see the things that they're working on, specifically with this Hesder program, is beyond special and exciting as an outsider / insider. And for me, as someone that's listening to this, just like you guys, if you've gotten this far in the episode, my biggest takeaway is that the yeshiva, as much as this is a new program starting in Shraga, the Rabbeim and the people that are involved are not newbies at this. They've been a part of what it's like to go to the army. They've been living in Israel for so many years. And I have a lot of confidence in them to hopefully help anybody that's interested in this program, to help guide them through the process and to make sure that they are spiritually strong, physically strong, emotionally strong, and basically everything that you need to be set up for success in taking the path of going to a Hesder program. So that's my takeaway for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If you did enjoy and you think that somebody could benefit from listening, and maybe if you think of someone, hey, that guy could be good for the Hesder program, feel free to send them a link to this episode. Hopefully they'll enjoy it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you guys next week. All the best.